What if I told you that a homeless man's single act of kindness would come back to change his life in the most incredible way imaginable 20 years later? This isn't just another feel-good story. This is about how one moment of human decency created a ripple effect that proves miracles really do happen to those who least expect them. Picture this: a man with absolutely nothing, living on the streets, discovers something that would test every fiber of his humanity. What he chose to do next didn't just save 2 lives. It completely transformed his own destiny in ways that will leave you speechless. Meet Elias Franklin. If you passed him on the street, you probably wouldn't look twice. Weathered hands, silver beard, tired eyes that had seen too much heartbreak. He pushed an old shopping cart filled with broken radios, tattered books, and a couple of thin blankets that barely kept him warm during those brutal winter nights. But here's what you wouldn't know just by looking at him. Elias wasn't always homeless. There was a time when his life looked completely different. He used to own a small radio repair shop on Roosevelt Avenue. Nothing fancy, mind you, just a cluttered little space that always smelled like solder and old electronics. But it was his world, and he loved every minute of it. He had everything that mattered back then. A wife named Noreen who had this incredible laugh that could light up the darkest room. A teenage son named Peter who once told him he was the smartest man in the world. Life was simple, honest, and good.
Oh.
Then tragedy struck like a hurricane. When Noreen got sick, everything Elias had built came crashing down. Those medical bills hit like waves during a storm. First went his tools, then his shop, even that antique clock Noreen had given him for their 10th anniversary. He sold everything, fought every battle, but sometimes life just doesn't play fair. When Noreen died, the light went out of Elias's world. Peter, devastated and angry at 17, couldn't handle the grief. They fought, said things that can never be taken back. And one day, Peter just ... vanished. No goodbye, no forwarding address, nothing. That's when Elias stopped fixing things and started walking instead. For years, he wandered the quiet corners of the city. He knew which churches served soup on Thursdays, where to find the warmest air vents, and which dumpsters might hold yesterday's expired bread. He never begged, never complained. That just wasn't who Elias was. But one freezing morning, everything changed forever. The sky was gray and heavy with the promise of snow. Elias was taking his usual route behind Westwood Grocery, checking the large green dumpster where he sometimes found bruised apples or day-old sandwiches. Just another routine stop and another routine day. Then he heard it. Sounds so faint he almost missed it. A cry, high-pitched, desperate, definitely not a cat. Elias stopped dead in his tracks, his heart pounding as he moved closer to the dumpster. With trembling hands, he lifted the heavy lid. What he found inside made his blood run cold. 2 newborn babies, barely wrapped in a thin towel, nestled between garbage bags like discarded items. One, a tiny boy, was crying weakly. The other, a little girl, lay motionless with her eyelids fluttering. Their skin was ice cold. Now think about this for a second. Here's a man who had lost everything, who had every reason to be bitter and turn away. He had no home, no money, no resources. By all logic, he should have called someone else to handle this. Instead, Elias did something extraordinary. Without hesitation, he ripped off his coat, the only thing keeping him warm in that brutal cold, and wrapped both babies against his chest. "You're okay, little ones," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "I've got you now." He didn't think about the consequences. He didn't worry about what people might say. He just moved, stumbling through icy streets and blinking traffic lights until he burst through the doors of St. Mary's Hospital. The receptionist gasped when she saw this homeless man soaked in sweat and snow, cradling to barely breathing infants. "Please," Elias begged, "help them." What happened next was controlled chaos. Doctors and nurses swarmed around those babies like their lives depended on it. Warmers were brought in, a pediatric team was called, and Elias stood outside the emergency room, watching every second like a guardian angel. "Where did you find them?" asked Clara, one of the nurses, her voice gentle but urgent. "In a dumpster behind Westwood Grocery," Elias replied, his voice breaking. "Your coat probably saved their lives," she whispered. Elias stayed at that hospital all night. Someone brought him coffee. Another person offered dry socks, but he refused to leave. "I just need to know they'll be okay," he kept saying. The next morning, Clara approached him with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. "They made it," she said. "Both of them. We've temporarily named them Aiden and Amara, but they're stable." Elias wept, not from sadness, but from something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. For weeks, Elias became a fixture at that hospital. Every single day he'd sit quietly outside the nursery window, watching those babies grow stronger. Clara would bring him tea and update him on their progress. How Amara always slept with her tiny fist clenched. How Aiden seemed to love music. For the first time in years, Elias was smiling again. But good things, as Elias had learned the hard way, rarely last forever. Social services arrived with their paperwork and protocols. The twins would be placed in foster care. Elias had no home, no income, no legal standing. Despite how much his heart begged him to, he couldn't adopt them. Clara stood with him that final night as they wheeled the babies away. "You saved them," she whispered. "That matters." Elias nodded through his tears, and just like that, they were gone. But something had changed in Elias. He returned to the streets, yes, but he wasn't the same broken man. He started fixing things again. Old radios from junkyards, abandoned bicycles, broken walkers for elderly neighbors. He gave everything to local shelters, helped whoever needed it, and kept himself busy. Deep down, something told him this wasn't the end of his story with those children. 20 years passed. 20 long years of Elias living at Haven House Shelter, sharing a corner bed with other people carrying heavy pasts. His beard had gone completely white. His walk had slowed, but he'd found peace in simplicity. Every November 3rd, he'd return to that alley behind Westwood Grocery, not to relive the pain, but to honor the moment. He'd leave something warm, a scarf or a baby blanket. As his way of saying thank you to the universe for reminding him his life had purpose, he often wondered what happened to those babies. In his heart, he imagined them safe and loved, maybe with a kind family somewhere. He didn't dream of greatness for them, just safety, warmth, bedtime stories. He never expected what came next. One ordinary Tuesday, a letter arrived at the shelter. Gold-trimmed envelope, elegant handwriting that simply read, "Mr. Elias Franklin." Inside, on expensive paper, was a handwritten invitation that made his hand shake. "Dear Mr. Franklin, you once saved 2 lives. We never forgot. You are invited to be our guest of honor. Riverside Banquet Hall, December 12th, 6 p.m. Formal attire not required. Just bring yourself. No signature. No explanation." Elias thought it had to be a mistake. He hadn't been invited anywhere in decades. But something about that handwriting felt familiar. On December 12th, he put on his cleanest button-down shirt, a navy coat gifted by a volunteer, and polished his old shoes with tissue and hand lotion. He combed his hair, stood a little straighter, and took the donated shuttle bus to Riverside. When he arrived, his heart nearly stopped. The building was glowing with lights and laughter. People in elegant gowns and expensive suits mingled in the lobby. Waiters passed trays of champagne. Elias felt completely out of place. Mr. Franklin, the hostess, smiled warmly. "This way, please." She guided him into a grand ballroom. The lights dimmed, and a young man in a gray suit took the microphone.
Ow.
His hair was neatly braided, his voice calm, but commanding. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're gathered not just for charity, but for legacy." A second man stepped up beside him. Taller, broader shoulders, easy smile, wearing a dark blue tuxedo. The first man continued. 20 years ago, my brother and I were left to die behind a grocery store dumpster. We don't remember that day, but we remember who gave us life. The second man's voice was thick with emotion. A man with nothing but his coat. A man who didn't walk past. A man who gave us everything when he had nothing. Elias felt his knees buckle. Someone gently guided him toward the stage as the entire room erupted in a standing ovation. The brothers stepped down and wrapped their arms around him. "I'm Amara," the taller one whispered. "And I'm Aiden," said the first. He named us without even knowing it. Elias couldn't speak. Tears flowed freely as the crowd continued clapping, many wiping their own eyes. Amara turned to the audience. Because of Elias. I became a cardiac surgeon, Aiden added, and I'm a structural engineer who just opened a nonprofit to build affordable homes. The crowd laughed and applauded, but Aiden raised his hand. But that's not why we're here tonight. On the screen behind them, an image appeared. A cozy house with a porch swing and a beautiful garden. Amara took Elias's trembling hand and placed a set of keys in his palm. "This is yours? Fully paid for in your name?" Elias gasped. "No, I couldn't." "You already did," Aiden said softly. "And there's more," Amara added. "A monthly stipend, full medical coverage, and a workshop out back, fully stocked, in case you ever want to keep fixing things." The room exploded in applause again. Elias sat down, still in complete disbelief. "Why me?" he asked in a choked whisper. "Why now?" Aiden smiled through his tears. "Because you didn't wait for thanks. You did what was right when no one else would." The story hit every news station the next morning, from Forgotten to Family, the homeless hero's incredible reunion. 2 weeks later, Elias moved into his new home. Neighbors welcomed him with casseroles. Kids brought him broken radios to fix. Every Friday, Amara and Aiden visited with groceries and stories about their latest projects. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence. But always, Elias looked at them with the same wonder, not because of their success, but because love had somehow come full circle. The man who once saved 2 abandoned babies from a dumpster was now surrounded by warmth, dignity, and family. You know what the most beautiful part of this story is? It reminds us that our darkest moments might actually be preparing us for our greatest purpose. Elias lost everything, but in that loss, he found exactly who he was meant to be. A man who chooses kindness when the world gives him every reason not to. If this incredible story touched your heart the way it touched mine, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances today. Drop a comment and tell me, what act of kindness changed your life? And don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this remind us that miracles happen every single day. We just have to be paying attention. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your heart ready. You never know when you might be someone's miracle or when they might be yours.